G'day again guys, 70 series dual battery DIY installation video, and this is the last of the V8s, the Facelift V8. We've got videos from the earlier models with the DPFs, however this video is about the V8 under-bonnet dual battery installation. There is some variations in them, so let's jump straight into it, show you what's in the kit and how to fit it. Congratulations, your dual battery DIY kit's just turned up. I want to bring to your attention the instructions. I say it in every video, find them in the box, get familiar with them, have a read of them, make sure all the kit contents are all there, all the tools to do the job. Before you pull the car apart in your driveway, have a read, get familiar, and they're easy to follow, color picture instructions, step by step. We've done it so you can do it at home simply. Okay, so the key point I want to make when you're working on any electrical item on or under the bonnet or on the vehicle is to isolate the power sources. On this vehicle it's completely factory, so we're going to isolate the main battery. If you've got a power supply in the back of the canopy or any other setup, isolate that as well. That is something, it's in the instructions, it is an important step so you don't have live cables in the engine bay while you're doing electrical works. Okay, so in this step we're going to remove the factory accessory fuse box that's mounted here to the side inner guard. As you'll see, the lid comes off. This hasn't been used at all. This is a blank canvas car. I don't recommend using them. They're not IP rated. They're just using your standard fuses. We tend to go for solid state switching. It's the way to go with electronic items. It's really easy to use and adapt with. It's a simpler system. If you do want to remount and relocate it, I would say go and put it over the other side of the vehicle. It keeps this side nice and tidy. So we're just going to go ahead and remove that now. So we've laid all the contents out. We've got everything lined up for the installation as per the instructions. The first thing we're going to do in step one is mount the BCDC to the bracket along with the fuse holders and connect the earth circuit. So in step three, I want to point out the charging profiles and how you can change them with the Red Arc BCDC charger. If you've gone for the 25 amp charger or the 40, you can change the profiles to suit your battery make. So if you've got a lithium or you've got an AGM, whatever battery you're going for, you can get the optimum charging setting on the BCDC. So in step 3 and 4, you're going to set that up for your battery you're installing. Okay, so step 5 covers off mounting the Anderson plug to the solar bracket. So we've prepared the solar circuit and the BCDC for mounting, and of course we're going to have to remove the grill now, so it's as easy as popping out the little trim clips. Make sure you don't lose them or drop them in the engine bay because sometimes you won't find them. Easy as just pushing them down, popping them out, and the grill's going to come away. So before we move the grill, something that's different in this V8 model is now, it doesn't have a bonnet scoop, all the air intake for the intercooler comes through this ductwork and now comes from the front of the vehicle. So we've had to change bracketry to suit. So you need to remove these plastic trims as well before you remove the grill. That's something you're going to notice different to the earlier model. Particular attention needs to be paid with the front grill. If you've got a radar fitted in your vehicle, you need to disconnect it while the battery is disconnected and then reconnect it before you connect the battery. And also when you place the grill somewhere, make sure it's not going to drop, break and damage the connector or the sensor. I'd guarantee it's pretty expensive. Okay, so we're over the bench. We've prepared the BCDC on the bracket. We've come over to the vehicle. We've slid it in. A couple of key points. Obviously, I've got a torch here as well so we can see all the cabling, and behind we're not pushing and being too aggressive on anything or bending anything out of shape. Another point I want to make is we've obviously got the masking tape on here, but you can put a cloth or a towel just over this edge along here. It is quite sharp. Two things, your wrists and hands on there, but also scratching your BCDC. Now with the earth circuit, we've looped the cables behind this bracket, come around, and we've just connected it up to this top bolt here. That's the black earth cable for the BCDC. We've just put on the M6, the nut and the bolt here, and we've just started the bolts. They're still sitting there nice and loose. We've also connected our main and auxiliary cables as well, and you're going to see here as well, this is the programming cables, and we've also got the longer cable for the solar input. We've just got that sitting over the bull bar, as you can see, and we are going to run that up and feed it through the top here, as well as our cables for our main and auxiliary charging circuits back to our batteries. Okay, so when we tighten the bracket up, you just want to position the bracket, make sure it's all rested home nice and neatly, nothing's jammed tight, and it's all going to come up. You can hear it there, it was just sitting on a thread. So now you can pretty much hand do everything, and the last bit nip it up. Just want to make sure you're not pulling anything into place. Look, with these bolts, I recommend not using impact. I've had some people use guns that have got too much torque and they've snapped those bolts off. So just be wary. You don't want to make more work for yourself. Takes a little bit longer by hand, but it'll be quicker in the long run. Okay, so we're at the point where we're going to feed in the main and auxiliary battery cables into the engine bay from the BCDC fuse holders. And what they're going to feed is the main and auxiliary battery, and they're just in this supplementary bag. So this bag here has all the wiring harnesses that you need for the engine bay. So you need to cut that open, and you're going to identify two leads that have, they're two different lengths, and obviously they've got an M and an A on the end, and they're obviously going to have different eyelets on them as well. So you need to identify that. Okay, so you'll note with the red fuse holder covers, I have taken them off the fuse holders. You just need to lever off these. They're a little bit stretchy. Don't pull on them too much. You can snap them, so just a bit of care is taken, and you can refit them once you've got all the fuses in place. Pretty easy to do. But the big key feature here I want to say is fuse sizes. If you've got a 40 amp charger or a 25 amp charger, they're different size fuses. In the instructions, it's noted here as well, so reference back to the instructions on step 24. If you've got a 25 amp charger, they're 40 amp fuses, and if you've got a 40 amp charger, they're 60 amp fuses. So make sure you put the appropriate fuses with the right charger. Okay, so we've located the two cables. You're going to note different size eyelets on them. One end's got large and the other's got smaller lugs on them, and also you can see they're angled as well, so when they're mounted they're both going to go side by side. The reason they're angled is to assist where the cable orientation goes, so we're not stressing the lugs, and they've been manufactured that way. So larger terminals, battery end, small terminals, fuse holder end. I'd take them out and feed them together. No, I'd do it this way.
Yeah, just go for it, yeah.
Okay, so as simple as feed the cables through this little foam grommet, and they'll come straight up into the engine bay. And away you go. Simple as that. Auxiliary, all the BCDC charging cables are there now. Now we just need to feed the solar cable through, and then last of all, this charging cable will just get secured up the side here once this guy gets fitted through. Okay, so we've just popped on the red fuse top covers. Now we've slid one zip tie down to the bottom to secure the wiring harness. Just the last zip tie up here, just to tie this harness securely out of the way. And then we can trim those zip ties off and roll the edges around. Still get to the fuses if you need to in the future. And that's the BCDC almost done. Okay, so last steps, we're just going to remove the tape we had on the BCDC to protect it. If you've got other accessories, spotlight wirings, different bull bars, anything like that, you may need to change how you're positioning the wiring to suit your other aftermarket accessories. Okay, so the grill, we need to make a little modification, and that is just here. We just need to trim off this lug here. It's in the way for the BCDC. Now, we talked about the radar. If you need to disconnect it, it is mounted into these little nutserts in the grill. Just be careful with the whole grill assembly. So we're just going to nip this off, and it's ready to fit once you've fitted the BCDC. Okay, so one little tip, you'll see all these white little trim clips. I just want to make sure they're all on the grill and they're not in the body of the vehicle. There's a couple of black ones at the end here, and then at the other end as well, you're going to see this one right here. So make sure they're in the grill before you go to fit it, and before you click it into place, make sure they're all lined up. So it is plastic, you can snap it if you're heavy-handed. Okay, you've seen I've just lined up all the clips. Before I click it in, I just need to make sure as well, the top little locators as well, they need to line up. And as you can see, that little plastic trim overhang that we trimmed off on the passenger side over here, as you've just seen on the driver's side, it actually doesn't serve any purpose. So rest assured, you're not cutting something off your grill that you actually need. Once the grill is all clipped back into place and you've located all the mounting holes, just start all your bolts back into place. You'll notice as well, these are step bolts. So when I mention that, if you just bolt it in and the grill isn't lined up, it is going to sit on the step, and you don't want to over tighten it because you could crack the grill. So pay attention when you are lining them up, that they go home nice and easy and into place correctly. Okay, so last step is the air deflectors. These feed the airflow from the front of the grill up into the bonnet and feed the intercooler. They're very important. We've spent a lot of time, so we don't cut these off to reduce the airflow. It's already getting less airflow with no bonnet scoop. As you'll see here, these are designed, they just drop straight back into place. And there is one more special trim clip. It's a little bit longer just to hold the back corner over here. Other than that, they drop straight in place. You can see the charging lights on the BCDC. However, I'm going to leave it till last just to validate everything's charging and it's neat and it's all finished, and I'll put these in last of all. Okay, so it's time to mount the Anderson for the solar plug. You've already assembled this on the bench earlier. It's as simple as taking the top nut off the battery carrier, potting that on there, nut back on there. This comes back around onto the factory earth terminal. Now you'll notice as well, before you mount it, you want to put in the positive feed into the positive connector of the Anderson. This lead is actually made longer. The reason we've done it is if you do, it's all pre-wired to the BCDC. If you feel that you want to have it external or somewhere else, we've got extra length there, so you can extend it out to the bull bar or do it somewhere else. The earth is there as well, just don't use a bracket and you can mount it somewhere else. However, we've designed it to go on the battery, so it's up to yourself as an end user. All right, so under the engine bay, getting preparation for the battery tray to go on. We've just removed the fuel filter, we've moved the injector drivers, we've removed some bracketry, we've made room for the battery tray now to just slip into place, marked all the holes, and we've fitted it all up, ready to go in. But before we fit the battery tray into the vehicle, one thing, we want to feed through the SBI, the battery link cable for the battery link switch in the dash. And this is where we've fed the pull cable through the grommet in the firewall. A little bit of extra care to take care there that you don't tear the grommet or make too large a hole, so you don't get water ingression in there. You definitely want to get this cable in before you put the battery tray in, otherwise it's going to be really tight for room. And once we've done that and the battery tray goes in, just want to make sure that there's no the clearances and everything, it's all sitting nice and neatly. Don't force it in there. If you're unsure, have a second look at it. Don't rush it. Just make sure it all fits in there nice and neatly. It fits like a glove, so take your time and get it right once. Okay, so a little tip with the wiring. Just want to make sure that you move the connectors out of the way from the injector drivers. You'll see here from when we started, it looked quite complex in here, and we've just moved and shuffled things around a little bit to give us a bit more room. And you'll see the injector driver connectors here. The large connectors will get plugged back together. The injector drivers will fit along the side of the battery tray and it'll all come together nice and neatly. You've just got to reshuffle the wiring so that the legs of the battery trays mount nicely down here, and away we go. The injector drivers, we will plug them in and have them sitting here, so when we slide the battery tray in, we just have to remount the little Phillips head screws to mount the drivers. And before we do the fitment of the battery tray, we're going to mount the SPI to the tray. It makes it much simpler once it's all back in. So let's get on with it. Okay, you'll see that we've removed the fuel filter housing from where it's mounted onto bracketry. One thing, a little tip as well, is if you're out in the field and you have got a dual battery or you don't, when you need to change the fuel filter, if the fuel lights come on the dash and you've got to get to the cock valve, like I say, it is really hard to get to in the car, but this one connector, it's got a locating tabs. They're clicked into the bodywork down under the filter, and you can only lift it up so far, and it is a bit of a pain to get to. I personally don't clip that back in, and that is the reason why. You can lift the filter up without having to dislodge that connector, and I have seen customers pull the wires out the back of them not knowing it was lodged and connected in there down deep when they're on the side of the road and they've got contaminated fuel. So just a little tip, if you do disconnect it, I personally leave it disconnected, makes it easier when you need to service it. You'll see you've got two small nuts there for here, two larger K-style nuts there for the top studs, two M6 nuts, and then you've got the two dust caps for later. So we're just going to use these M6s, and they're just going to get mounted up onto here. Now it has got play in it as well, so if you do need to move it for any said reason, but generally leave it flush. The battery, this is a large battery tray, it's the largest one we can possibly get in the car, so we've designed it that way. That's ideally where we're going to sit it, and we can do that up now, and then we'll feed this cable through. Now just want to make a note as well, the battery tray, this is a late model Facelift V8. There is different injector drivers through the series, however this one here, you'll notice the injector drivers are different. You need to follow the instructions that suit your specific model vehicle, and they do mount a certain way on the back of the tray. So there is multiple holes for the different year models, so just bear that in mind when you do go to mount it up. Little mention I want to make note here, do not put these somewhere where you may drop them. These connectors, if you drop them, they're going to break. These guys are expensive, best bit of $1,000, so make sure you put them somewhere safe. Treat them with care, they're an electronics item. So we're just taping on a pull cable. You can use a little bit of silicone spray just so that the last thing you want to do is go in the cab, pull the pull cable through, and only the pull cable comes through, and this guy's in the engine bay. Then you're going to repeat the process. So a little bit of extra insulation tape will never hurt, and like I said, a bit of silicone spray or something to help it glide through the firewall, and away you go. So you can just drag that through. Also, if you are running extra cables, it's a good time to get down to this grommet now and put extra cables through, or even maybe just leave a pull cable in there for later on so that you've got easy access. Makes life easier if you're installing UHFs or some other accessory is going to go through there later. So we're in the cab, and now it's time to wire up the SPI, or the battery link solenoid. We've got one connector in our switch, battery link switch as well. So it's a momentary switch, so it only just stays on when you push it, and the reason and where we're going to mount it is on the left side of the steering wheel, or in this section here. The reason is the key is on the other side of the steering wheel, so when you go to turn the car on with your right hand, you can push and hold the momentary button with your left finger to link the batteries for the jump start feature. All the wiring colours, what we're going to do is now pop this trim out here, a couple of 10 mils at the bottom. We're going to pop the trim out, take out one of these blanks, so you will need a spot in here to mount it in, and then we are going to route this cable up behind the dash, and we're going to join it into here, and then we're also going to tap into an earth circuit and a park light pickup as well, and away we go. So let's jump straight into it. So now we've just dislodged the trim, and you can see we've got access to all the connectors. So we'll just pop it into this one here, and we'll pop this blank out. Then we'll tee in the wiring. It's a matter of just flipping the connector into the back of the switch, And then wiring, we've just got to solder 4 wires, tape them into place, clip these trims back in. One thing I want to note is just need to make sure they all align, and you'll see I've just lifted this up, it's just nice and loose. Under here, there's locating tabs as well. Make sure you just don't force anything. And as you can see, it has got a little bit of aftermarket wiring already. So, and we're literally going to run our cable from here. And the glove box comes out nice and easy as well. So we're just going to route the cable, and we're going to secure it a lot nicer than that. As you can see, what you don't see behind the dash, you don't see. However, we're going to follow this main loom, and then we're going to run zip ties. I'm going to tie it off nice and neat. So this is a classic example of what you don't see with a stereo installation. Looks good from the front, but not great from there. So just to get these trims out, they're a little bit more firmer lodged into place than the earlier ones. Trick is use a flat blade or something, just slide between and dislodge these little tabs on the side. They're pretty firmly locked in. I have gone for the center one there. You can use any position you see fit for your switch. So it's just a matter of now clicking through. And sometimes as well, rather than putting heaps of force on the front of the switch, grab the connector bar from behind here and pull it through as well. Now you can see that's locked into place, and we've got our nice momentary switch fitted off. And it's just a matter of now connecting that, and then we have all the other wiring. Tow Pro connector, UHF it is. I'll reconnect that. Anything you have disconnect, just check all that as well. Sometimes I have noticed as well, can get busy with aftermarket wiring behind here. Don't just jam this trim in, make sure the trim's nice and neatly sit back and it just pushes in nicely. Don't put a lot of force on it. So away we go, we'll just solder these cables in now and we're pretty much done in the cab. So I've just dummy fitted the battery tray. I haven't got the injector drivers in position yet. I've just literally got the tray in, and it's as simple as this. Just tilt it back, move these connectors out of the way, and I've just rested in place, and just like that it sits in there. Once you've got everything in the right position, it just drops into place, and the trick is just to lower the back down. The solenoid is still loose. You can get a 10mm spanner under here as well. Like I was saying, if you push it all the way back, it is against the firewall, and just bring it forward slightly. Make sure your connectors under here are nice and loose, and then the trick is once I go to do the drivers and connect them, see now I can just tilt the tray forward like this. I can pick up these connectors nice and freely, connect them in, and then we're going to connect the injector drivers and loosely start everything, and then once again make sure it all drops into place, all our holes line up and nothing is getting crushed or nipped or anything like that, and we're completely happy where it all sits, and then we can tighten everything up as a final fit off. So when we talk about locating the grey and the black connector, you'll see here I've got one zip tie just securing the looms back out of the way, so the battery tray foot lands here, and then back the front foot now lands here. These harnesses are nice and free to come up here. One thing I want to make note of, the washer hose, I have disconnected it up off the bonnet, off of here, and I've just fed it through down here, along here, and I've gone behind this wiring harness because the tray does come past here with the hose. It would put some pressure along here because it is quite a tight fit, so now it goes behind. So you can see everything's nice and fitting, it's all relaxed, and we're going to go ahead and mount the tray in position with the drivers on it. Okay, so we're at the stage now the tray's in position, and as you can see I've got the 2 side bolts into the guard. The tray's all just sitting here nice and loosely. The injector drivers are plugged in. We've got the 4 connector at the back, the injector driver, and the 3 plug connector here. We've just put the 2 little Phillips head screws to mount them. They're just finger tight as well. Now at this point in time you just want to make sure everything's sitting there nice and neat, and this little earth lead as well, that's something I want to make a special note of as well. This is going to get mounted onto this little nut nut and bolt, so I can still get my finger around here, put this M6 on here. It's going to be mounted back like that, and it's going to come onto the top of the earth for the trigger of the solenoid. And now our battery jump start function lead, this here, is going to go underneath, and we are going to come around, and we're going to, this can change depending on your vehicle setup as well. The reason is you want to have it so that you can access, it is a fused link into the cab. Obviously we are bringing 12 volt into the cab. End result is, in this vehicle, it's going to sit about here. This guy is going to jump onto there, and then we are going to get whichever stud the power comes from the auxiliary battery. This is going to go onto it, so it gets power from the auxiliary battery to link it, and end result is the fuse is in a serviceable location. So with no extra wiring, it's nice and easy to get to here. Comes with a fuse already in it. We've got nigel, like an electronic grease in there as well for corrosion resistance, so it's a long term. Should never need to touch it, but it is fused just in case you do. Okay, so with the injector drivers as well, what you want to make sure is you've got all these little Phillips head little screws just started, and then you can do them up thumb and forefinger. They don't need to be rock solid, they're just there to support the driver, so don't over tighten them. Okay, so last step now is just to use the large mud flap washers or penny washers with the M8 bolt and the nylock. So the nylock goes on the inner, from the wheel arch or the inner guard from underneath, with a washer and a bolt and a washer from the top, and then line it all up, secure it down, pull it into position. Tray's all mounted to finish off. All the injector drivers are done. The SBI is all tightened in place. The earth is on there. The battery link is on there. The only one we haven't done is the two, last thing we do is the two BS leads and the charging leads from the BC to EC onto the SBI, and then we're on a home run. Okay, so we've just popped in all the M8s. I've finger tight the back bolt up, so I've pulled the battery tray to the guard. I've just removed the M8 that goes in the front of the guard here. I'm going to connect the earth wire now and start this one. However, I'll just do it finger tight so the earth can still move around. We can get into position and onto the battery terminal. Then last of all, before we connect any other, connect the main battery and the auxiliary battery up from a positives point of view, we are going to tighten it all up. So let's just tighten this up now, and last thing is to go around and hand tighten the nylock nuts from underneath. Okay, so I'm just holding the bolts down while I start the nylock nuts from underneath, and that's why the back of the tray, it's got that large opening so you can actually get your hand in there and easily work with it. Last one. Okay, so now just a 12mm ratchet, or you can use a spanner, and we're just going to lock off the back one, and then you are going to need a spanner or ratchet spanner and do the earth. However, the earth, we have it sitting across to the back here, and then it comes around onto the stud. We use a battery that has a post and a stud. That's our preferred method. Just depends on your battery setup at your end. So away you go, tighten them up. Okay, so the tray's completely fitted off now. Now you might have seen we've got the orange masking tape here, and what's that there for? And the reason is these little injector drivers, the screws that hold them in place, it's like trying to find the 10mm socket, you know, when you drop it in the engine bay and you can't get it. Well, these guys are smaller than a 10mm socket. They drop down there and you're going to be fishing for days. So a little bit of preparation with masking tape might save the day. Hey, if you think you're great and you don't need it, go for it, but it's definitely saved the day for me before. Just like that, battery tray fitted. So at this point, we're going to fit the factory fuel filter back in place. You don't have to remove it. However, as you've seen, it just gives you heaps more room to get it in there nice and neat and easy. Now, I did mention earlier, this grey connector, you do need to connect it, but I'm not going to plug that back into the inner wheel arch, because when you need to service that fuel filter on the side of the road, it is a right pain to get to, and I've seen customers break the connector. It's up to you if you want to plug it back in or not, but connect the connector. Just, I would advise not to plug the locating dowel back in underneath. And so when I talk about that grey connector not plugging it back in, that's as high as you can get it with the connector plugged in, with it dislodged from the inner wheel arch. Now, if it was in, I'll just hold it down there. Now that's as high as you can get it. So you can't even get to, you can't really see from that angle, this is the cock valve. So if you need to drain the factory fuel filter, this is where the cock valve is. Now, when this is in situ, and you do what any Land Cruiser is built to do as a dual battery system and go touring, it's very hard to get to that cock valve, and that's why with our fuel filtration kit, what we prefer to do is have the clear bowl on the other side and you can easily service it. So we mentioned earlier in the dual battery installation video about the accessory relocation and moving it over to the driver's side of the vehicle. This is the bracket here and it's just gone. All right, got the 10mm, we're back in production. Accessory fuse box relocation. We've got a supplement bracket as well. Can purchase this if you are going to reuse it. However, we've made it to go with our fuel kit and breather kit, and you'll see it here. We've just dummied it up so it's all mounted, and it's just a matter of clicking it back on and away you go if you do want to use it. However, like I mentioned, solid state switching is the way to go. Getting away from exposed fuse box is highly recommended from my point of view, but if you do want to use it, we've got an option for you. The cable length around this area, we have given you an extra bit of length. It does get busy here. We see other accessories, fuse boxes, all that sort of stuff. It gets really busy here, so you can route that to suit your application. Okay, so it's time to fit the 2BS or the jump start, the main battery cables on. This short one is the auxiliary battery cable. The long one is the main. So we're going to navigate this guy from where it would represent at the front through where we want it to route. And I've changed some things around obviously so it suits the orientation of these cables, because as you're going to note, they're quite stiff and they're large battery cables. They don't flex as easy as some of the lighter cables. So the back stud is the auxiliary battery because the auxiliary battery is at the back, and the main stud, the M, is the main battery and that's at the front. So the large 2BS cable is going to come sit on top at the front over here, and then the rear is going to go onto the auxiliary, which is the shorter, stiffer, the little short stiff cable. And the reason is the shorter cable, it's got a loop, it's going to come around and sit onto the positive terminal here. Now when we do that, you do need to make sure this one here is the fuse or the power pickup for the jump start function comes off the auxiliary battery. So just be sure you put it on the right way around. So the main battery cable, we're going to route it along here. It's going to come on to this stud here. Main battery, main cable, it's the front battery. And then we've got auxiliary battery cable here onto the auxiliary. And then this guy is on to the auxiliary cable. Okay, so now we've secured the nuts on the large studs on the rear solenoid. Just going to zip tie that 2BS cable and make sure it's all nice and secure. Come back up to the main battery positive, and we just need to trim a little opening on the back edge here just for it to jump through and get a really great clean connection. Okay, so it's time to connect the main battery to the 2BS cable. We've just removed the red plastic cover off the positive here. We've undone the 12mm nut, it's already pre-loosened. And to make space to get a really clean connection with this, we're going to lift this off here, and we've undone the positive terminal. And we are going to remove this, and we're actually going to discard this plastic cover. It's not serving any purpose for like connection or any purpose like that. But it's restricting us from getting a clean connection so we can make sure the car starts. And also later on, this little red cover here, we do just need to trim a little entry point so that when this cable comes in, this cover locates nice and neatly back on where it should go. Okay, so to remove this, you're going to see a little clip in here. Undo that. Roll the battery terminal out. This here, we don't require that anymore. Terminal, just make sure you get it right back down on the base. Sometimes what you can do is open the terminal up, so just loosen this 10mm. So you want to get the base of this right down the bottom so you can get as much clamp as you can. There's nothing worse than having a loose battery terminal. Okay, so we've got the terminal on. Just to get this, we're going to flip the cable up this way, and we want to get a nice contact here, and then the factory one's going to come on top. But for us to get a nice flush connection, underneath here, you can see there's a little bit of plastic in the way, so a small bit of trimming is required there. Okay, so with the battery linking solenoid, you get these little dust covers as well. You can just put them on top, it insulates the terminals. Now, a little trick, something I've done in the past, they look good sitting there. However, if you just touch them, they can come off, so you can put a little bit of RTV. Wouldn't use like a Sikaflex or something super aggressive adhesive, but just something to hold them in place. That'll keep them there nicely. Now we're just going to lift in the battery, put our J-hooks in, top clamp, and we can start terminating our terminals. Okay, so we're going to fit the battery in. Obviously you can see our stainless steel top battery clamp, and we've obviously got a wide battery clamp, and you can also mount fuse holders on the top. Now we couple that with our stainless steel J-hooks. You're going to see they're quite large. A lot of other battery kits on the market use quite thin and wing nuts, and this is plastic. We've also gone with washers on the top and the nylock, so we can securely mount the battery down. And also with this battery we're using, it's a sealed battery, so we don't have serviceable caps on there. Something I see and why we've formed up a stainless steel battery tray is because when batteries leak in corrugations and off-road and they breathe, it then goes over the powder coated mild steel battery tray and just makes it look secondhand really quickly. So that's why we've got with stainless steel, and that's why we've gone with this battery as well. We've got posts and studs, so you can get a really good connection, and we don't need extra battery terminals. And may I also say, this one here, we use an M6, and it secures the battery, the top of the stay, back to the guard, as well as down into the tray. So let's get in the car. So battery's in place. I've just pushed it over so I can sit this bracket. End result is it's going to clamp with the M6 here into the factory nutsert. Now the J-hook, you can service these without having the battery out of the vehicle, because it's very frustrating when you're trying to get a J-hook and you've got to hold it up while you lift in a battery that's quite heavy. So we can actually, we've designed the tray so you can now drop in the J-hook, sit it in place, hold it there, nut and washer, and they are nylock like I mentioned. Now that is going to stay there. I'm going to pop in the other one as well. Now it's good to have a good visual as well, not just put a J-hook and go, yeah, it's got something and you've hooked onto wiring or something you shouldn't have. Okay, so that's all sitting there ready to go. And you'll see the battery, we've got a fair bit of room around the battery, and that's so obviously can move it, different size batteries. And may I also say this kit is designed, you can also add a lithium in there. The Invicta batteries is what we use there. They're a crank and a deep cycle, and obviously they work really well, and they're nowhere near the weight of this guy, and the output on them is second to none. So let's crack on, put that 6mm in. Okay, so the battery's in situ. Now you'll see I'm not over tightening the battery. You only need to bring the tension on the battery just so it stops moving around. You don't need to try and wind it down and actually impression in the top of the plastic housing or the battery case itself. You will damage the battery if you over tighten it. So just make sure the battery doesn't move, and that's why we've gone for a mechanical fix and a quality nylock nut on there as well, not a wing nut, and that way it won't rattle loose. It's made to go off-road. So now we're going to go along and we'll start terminating from the back to the front. Okay, so just connecting the earth here, and then our auxiliary battery is live. And one thing I want to make sure, and you should always check with your battery, this is the earth cable. The negative terminal is going to the black cable. The positive sign on the battery is going to the red cable. Positive, negative, get them around the wrong way, you're going to have a whole world of problems. So pay attention, put the right battery, the right orientation to the right cable. Now last termination is the main battery earth. we've got all the other connections done. So what we're going to do now is we're going to drop that on there. We've loosened off this stud here. And we are going to connect the solar feed. We're going to come around here. Drop him on top. If you've got aftermarket accessories on there as well, you may have to stack the terminals appropriately so that you've got a clean connection. And then make sure you do all the battery terminals back up and you've got a good connection. Possibly want to go and check the earth here as well, just to double check you've got that tight. It's safe to just double check all your connections and make sure they're good before we get to that stage where we are going to validate the charging system, start the car up and check the output of the BCDC. If you're unsure, check it twice, it won't do any harm. Okay, so this is the point where you want to validate the second battery and the battery jump start function. As you can see, I have got a friend helping me, so hit the switch in there and you're going to hear that clicking noise. Just hit it a few times. So you can hear that clicking noise. That's the solenoid contacts engaging and disengaging, and that there is joining the auxiliary battery to the main battery so you can jump start the vehicle. Then once the car's running and you've let go of the switch, it then falls onto the BCDC. The batteries are isolated. The second battery is charged by the BCDC. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start the vehicle up. We're happy the solenoid's working, and we're going to check the charging system and validate that, and then we'll go ahead and we'll put the air ducts back on. We're about just done. Okay, so we've buttoned up the inside. We put all the trims back together just to validate the switch. You're going to see the park light that illuminates. You can hear the buzzer come on, so I don't know if you can sort of see. There you go, you can see it's lit up there. Now when you hit the momentary switch, see the second light come on, and if you listen you'll hear the clicking. So we know we've wired it all the correct way and it's all working and functioning, so we're all done inside. Okay, so last step, we're just going to put the air ducts back in place, put the trim clips back in, so it's as easy as putting them in position, and then the black plastic clips that come out, put them back in, and we're job done. Okay, so the last clip, the factory clip that we had here, you can see it's a little bit short. In the kit we've got a longer locating clip, so we just pop him straight in there. Okay, so a design feature that we've put into this kit, you'll notice we haven't chopped any ductwork up. We haven't had to modify it in any way. What that means is the airflow through the grill still comes up here and feeds the intercooler, and also you can see the BCDC, the charging lights. So you don't need to remove anything to see what's happening with the BCDC. You can visually see it, and the engine's getting its full cooling capacity. That's how we've designed the kit. Okay, so just like that, we've fitted the dual battery kit to a Facelift 70 Series Landcruiser. If you're after one, get in touch with us, hit the link below, and it's as simple as that. You've watched it from start to finish, you've seen how simple it is. It all comes in one easy box, so get in touch if you're after one. Until next time, I'll see you on the next video.